This episode is sponsored by the Paper Trails Greeting Company. Runners near and far, hear ye, hear ye. There's an amazing company that's dedicated to celebrating and encouraging every runner that laces up a pair of running shoes, and it's called the Paper Trails Greeting Company. This company offers something that's hard to replicate in a text message, and that is a physical, innovative, and genuine note of kindness that supports and celebrates every runner. The motto of the company is that every runner belongs, and each card proves that. The cards preach community among all runners, and there's a card for each season of a runner's journey. If you've run a new personal best, there's a card that celebrates that. If you suffered an injury, there's a card that lets you know that someone is thinking of you and that you'll come back even stronger. There's even a card that celebrates your significant running other. For me personally, I never felt like a runner. But then I stumbled across the Paper Trails Greeting Company, and it inspired me to pick up running again, and eventually it made me feel like I was a part of the running community. Go on their website, papertrailsgreetingco.com, and check out their incredible selection of cards. Use the code Lactic Acid in all caps for 15% off your order. They also have inspirational stickers and PDF printouts, so be sure to check those out as well. Then follow them on their social media page on Instagram, Paper Trails Greeting Co., as well on Facebook. And always remember to celebrate every runner and that every runner belongs. What's going on, ladies and gentlemen, saints and ain'ts, and welcome to Lactic Acid, the podcast where the takes are fresh, the ideas are ripe, which makes us the best in the bunch. I am your host, Dominique Smith, and I hope everyone had a happy holiday. But today, I am super pumped to bring to you today's guest. She will be the track and field historian of the world, and she will be a published author as well as a doctor very soon. Definitely someone I look up to, appreciate, full of knowledge and wisdom, and I'm so pumped to have her on the show. She is none other than Miss Hannah Borenstein. What's going on, fam? How you doing? It's good to see you.
It's good to see you too. It's so funny. I feel like you calling me historian. There's a lot of historians, I'm sure, that would not be too happy about that, but I do appreciate it.
Well, listen, they're not about. Well, I was going to say they're not about that life, but if you're a historian, you're kind of about that life. But so are you.
They're way more about that life than I
am. Well, listen, one thing you're going to get a chance to see is that Hannah has a great understanding and great wisdom based on her experience and the way she thinks of the deeper things of track and field and just the deeper things of humanity, which is much needed in our culture and our society because it helps us move forward. And there's none better to do that than her. But usually, so I ask everyone when we start, if you had to compare, your game or whatever you do to a superhero, who would you compare yourself to? But I'm not going to ask you that because this episode is unique. It's one I've been looking forward to because Hannah, like myself, is a 90s television show brat. It's the best era in television, and we have a whole segment about that. You're going to get an education lesson on it, trust me. But the question I want to ask you, what 90s character from what 90s show do you relate to the most?
Oh man, I'm so happy I got away from the superhero question. I was like nervous you were going to ask me that because that's like so not my world. Can I choose a movie?
Yeah, doesn't matter.
I think Matilda.
Oh.
Yeah, I've read the book a million times, seen the movie a million times. Yeah, I feel like that's the best pick because it's not necessarily my favorite character, though I do love her, but like, yeah, identify with.
Do you have superpowers like Matilda?
I think like one of the reasons that I feel like I do is that there's that scene, if I don't know if you've seen the movie, but in the very beginning,
10 times, like
a million times, when she makes the pancakes when she's like 3 years old. And I feel like that's just like me. Like, I don't think I was that young when I learned how to make pancakes, but it was definitely the first food that I learned how to make. And I could like do it at a young age. And I was definitely like standing on a chair, like in the kitchen, home alone, making pancakes one time. And I was just like, I remember seeing that and being like, that's me. I was blonde, but that was the only difference.
So for whatever reason on Freeform, Matilda's been on like before the 25 Days of Christmas so many times. I probably watched it 7 times in a month for whatever reason. I will say this: I wish, like, when I was in school, that if I could have that power to make someone with your eyes, like beat the crap out of them just by looking at them. That is
Oh my God. That moment when the carrot is coming towards her and she just like freezes it and like iconic. Yeah, I can't.
it's like epic, and it's that mean old lady, whatever her name is. I don't even know.
Trenchable. It's
Yeah,
trenchable.
yeah. Like, I don't know. They didn't egg her, but everybody went and threw stuff at her, and it was happily ever after. I don't know why I like that movie so much, but like I don't know. I've been watching it, a lot. But that is epic to make pancakes at 3 years old. I think when I was 3, I put my hand on the stove when my mom told me not to.
Yeah, I mean, I like definitely did that too.
Yeah, but the fact that you're making pancakes, I'm 27 and I can't flip a pancake to save my life. So that is epic. So Hannah and I, we met back in the day, meaning about 8 months ago. I don't even know how many months ago. It was a minute ago, but we were part of the Magic Boost program. And if you've listened to the show, there's been a couple guests. It's Emma Zimmerman, and definitely be sure to check out that episode. It came out in August, but Hannah was a guest on there, and they went deep into some topics. Hannah's amazing work in Ethiopia and some of the perspectives and things that she's learned. Definitely be sure to check that out. Emma's no stranger to the show. She was my second guest. But yeah, we met in the Magic Boost program, and we really got a chance to know each other. And so that's why I'm very, very excited to share her brilliance. But one of the things that, well, when we first get started, she goes to Duke, is getting her PhD in anthropology. Did I say that correctly?
Yep. All right.
Okay, we're on the right track. I thought I was going to mess that up, and stuff like that. And so, like I said, she read her stuff, go on her Twitter account, and definitely see some of the things that she's written and some of the episodes that she's been on. One thing that I'm interested in is, how did you get the curiosity and just the want to know more, to experience different cultures, to go deep and even deeper, to get a basic understanding, and then be able to present it in such a way that it could truly affect change? Because the things that you've worked on, the things that you are working on, it's something that needs to be brought to the forefront for people to know, to grow, and then to expand. And like I said, that's how change is built. Where did that come from?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, I feel like I've always been. I mean, it gets to the heart of like what I do, because I think I've been able to meet throughout my whole life, even like when I was a kid, lots of different people through sports, because it can be a way. Not sometimes it's a way where you really only meet the same people. Like if you're,
Yeah.
on like a sort of a more prohibitive sport where there's like a big barrier to entry. But I played like basketball growing up, and I was like meeting people from all different walks of life, and through that. And then when I was in college, I met a lot of people who had, either were from different countries or had traveled, and I hadn't left the country. And I think that was like, so when I became really curious about traveling, I like applied for this undergrad grant, and that was when I went to Ethiopia for the first time. The first time I left the US, I went to Ethiopia, which was like a huge culture shock. And it was also the start of like a broader curiosity about the world, but it also led me, I mean, ultimately to what I'm still working on today with my PhD, which is like this project about Ethiopian athletes. And I think, one thing that's cool about doing what I've done is that I don't like, there's a lot of places in the world I haven't been that I like to go, but it's definitely really interesting to learn a lot about a place that's so different from where you're from. Because I think I went there and I met people, and I learned that like every expectation, there's just like so much more depth there. Yeah. I felt like I couldn't look away. So I think that's kind of like how I started. And then the second point of your question of like why I want to, I guess bring people into it is for a couple of reasons, but one of them is like, then I went and got this PhD where you're so like encouraged to read all this theory and like learn this academic language that, almost all of the world doesn't speak at all. And so I wanted to write about things that people in Ethiopia were telling me they wanted people here to know. But if I write about that in academic language, which I have done, like I have some like peer-reviewed articles, there's gonna be like 5 people that read that maybe. But if I write something that's way more accessible, it gets out there way quicker, a lot more people can engage with it. So that's kind of why like I started to go down that direction the last couple of years.
Well, let me just say this. I would be one of them it would be like reading hieroglyphics, if you wrote it in kind of like the academic world, but it's so interesting. And you do such a great job of writing it in such a way where there is such a storytelling kind of method. I know that, you're really close with families and runners in Ethiopia and stuff like that. Did that experience in Ethiopia kind of teach you how to break it down in such a way that everybody understands it and everything? Because there's emotion in your writing, but it's like proper emotion, if that makes sense. Because you do a great job of capturing the emotion of the person's story that you're telling, or the situation and everything, and you offer unique perspectives. So that's one thing that I'm curious about. Like, did that experience of going to Ethiopia and going around the world and traveling, and you went to Switzerland, you were at some track meets and everything like that, just breaking it down, has that kind of impacted your writing and your storytelling more so to have others understand it?
Yeah, well, first of all, thank you very much for saying that. And yeah, definitely. I think it's like given me an insight into the tools that the information and sort of like what I need to have to feel like I'm the right person to tell a story, for one. And sometimes that's not me, right? Like, even if I want to. And two, I'm not going to get to live with every single athlete in the world I want to tell a story about. I know that, right? But kind of like with what you do with this podcast, like where can you find some kind of third thing where you're relating to a person, or like understanding something else about their life, that then you feel you have the ability to say something about whatever. Like, where do you feel like you can kind of meet, especially when you're working with an athlete, like meet them so that you feel like you can represent them in the way that they would either want to be represented, or that they would represent themselves. So at that meet in Switzerland, actually, I met Josette Norris, who was like having this incredible summer of racing after she didn't make the Olympic team. And she ended up like coming third in the final Diamond League. But we spoke after the race. And then the next day I sat down with her and her partner, Robbie Andrews, who are like 2 of the best, middle distance runners in the US. And like, we had this long interview with them, and I wrote an article about her. And then like 2 months later, totally out of the blue, she and I and Robbie showed up to this place where I run all the time when I'm visiting my parents' house, Rockefeller State Park, and they happened to be there. It was really weird. And we showed up at the same time too. So I ended up going on the run with her. And like, they said to me, that article was so great. Like, my mom loved it. And to me, that was like the best. Apparently her mom was like, you captured our relationship so well. And to me, that was like the best compliment I could ever get, is like when an athlete signs off and tells me that like they feel like I captured the ethos of whatever like they were in at that moment. Like, then I feel like I actually did like a decent job, because if it feels like a huge responsibility sometimes to like tell someone else's story. So I think like my work in Ethiopia has definitely done that, because it makes me think about all the contextual things that if I'm just meeting someone, or like I don't know them that well, like what should I try and learn to get a whole sense of that person.
Well, that's why I say you're like the GOAT when it comes to like the track and field historian, because like, I need to stop saying like, but when I was in school, we had to read Clive Staples Lewis, aka C.S. Lewis. And so I went to a private Christian school. So we had to read this book called Mere Christianity. And oh my goodness, did I not understand like what he was saying because of the language that was being used. It was like, can you break this down like the Lion, Witch, and the Wardrobe kind of deal? But to your point, it is, I sometimes sit down and I'll have this amazing interview and it's like, oh, sweet baby Jesus of Nazareth, how am I supposed to break this down, and write it? But you do such a unique job of doing that, especially when it comes to deeper topics and really engaging with athletes, especially, where there's, a difference. You and I at the Magic Boost program, and I'll touch on Magic Boost just a hair, because I'm sure there's some people who have heard too much about it or they feel like they did. And personally, I don't care, but it was a great experience. But we kind of, swap stories about some of the things that we went through growing up and, kind of our background. Does that ever factor into, what you do as far as, okay, I'm learning more and you can relate to the different people that you come in contact with, especially with unique stories? Does that ever kind of help you bridge the gap with people and even in your writing?
Yeah, totally. I remember, and now that I'm thinking back to those conversations, yeah, I think your question makes a lot of sense because I think if I remember correctly, sort of speaking thematically, I think one of the things that we talked about was like people may be assuming a lot of things about you based on like knowing one or two facts or like pieces of data about your life, and then they kind of like assume this whole story. And that story, maybe sometimes it's accurate. I think in our cases, a lot of times it's not. And so I think not trying to not have those assumptions for sure is definitely one thing, and like making people feel comfortable. But like you said, it's also hard to convey to them, especially in track and field media. Like one of the things that we saw is like has been sort of like an older white guy's game for a while. And there's a level of distrust that I think a lot of us in the program could observe being there, because some of the athletes, like maybe in the past they've had their quotes taken out of context, and there's not that kind of like, you have a lot of power when you're interviewing someone and then you only get to choose a couple things that they said,
Right.
and to put into the article, and then you still have to represent them. And it's like you may do an hour and a half interview and have to boil that down into 800 words, and you want it to be compelling and like evocative, but you also want to represent them well. And so I think I try and put myself in their shoes in being in this kind of vulnerable position, and one, to like break the ice and sort of make them feel more comfortable, but two, to think about, like if I were on the other side of the microphone or whatever, like what parts of my story that maybe haven't been told but that people would assume about me, like I think what we were talking about, what would I like want to come out of that? But it's tough because unless you've like, I know Dana sort of brings this perspective, unless you've like been an elite athlete, I think for a lot of us it is definitely, like we haven't really been in the spotlight. So, or like I haven't. So yeah, I draw on like that experience of, being sort of like pigeonholed or being like assumed to be a certain way and being frustrated about that, but feeling like I can't say anything. And I try and like help them be the person that could like voice whatever the thing is that they feel like they haven't been able to say yet.
Why did you choose to, what's the proper word? I don't want to say be a part because we were selected, but why did you want to be a part of the Magic Boost program?
Well, I think like most of us, like none of us really knew what we were doing, like getting into. But like when Chris Chavez has his, that's the person that it's been under, you kind of like, it gives it a sense of legitimacy. So that's a great question. I mean, for sure, like I definitely wanted to like make more connections and meet people, which I definitely did. And I definitely wanted to go to pre, like that I'm sure was a driving factor for all of us. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. But I think what was like so cool about being at pre with everybody in the program was that I could like start to see, and I was probably one of the few people that had been at some like pretty elite meets at that point, behind the scenes. And so, but it was like, I started to like see a group of really diverse people with, diverse backgrounds, diverse interests, and diverse abilities that we could, like, I was like, oh, this is going forward. Like, we're going to see each other in these spaces, I hope. And we're going to be able to like use each other and hopefully collaborate and like not be territorial over the media like landscape. There's certain interviews that like I shouldn't do, and I should like call you to do, or like get, context from you. If I hope that we can, like, seems like we have been, but continue having these conversations and like talk to each other for support and for information, and just make it a more collaborative process than I think it has been for a while.
I think we have, when you go to conferences and different things like this and you're part of it, there's a major level of selfishness. And sometimes, thinking about yourself it's fine, because you need to get everything that you can get and then, get better. But part of the problem, and, we'll touch on it later, is that when we saw the landscape of it, sometimes I have trouble, getting athletes, and I don't want to be like, oh, I'm better, but it's like, listen, I provide a different perspective. You provide a different perspective. People in that group, for one, we're younger, and then the questions we have are different. It's not the same thing that you're used to, but there is a level of selfishness because it's so competitive, not talking about our group, but, kind of, what we saw from everybody else. And it's not good for the athletes. It's not good for, just what we want to do as storytellers and content creators. But, and like I said, we're going to get back to, because I have a specific question, but this was just on my mind and I have to ask. So you were a hooper back in the day.
Sure was.
So I need some context behind that. Who can you, like, give me a name of somebody to describe that hooping element? Because, you posted a picture on Instagram a few weeks ago or a couple months ago or whatever, and that was an impressive skill set. Had the ball, positioned in the right hand, and the left hand went up properly for the layup, knocked off the foot. So I need to know, we need to get to know Hannah Borenstein, because you are an athlete on this show, and this show is for everybody. Give me some context about the hooper that is within.
The hooper that's within will always be the hooper.
Okay.
Yeah, no, I thought I also like posted something of me when I was probably like 6 or 7, and like I was some photo on my story with this ridiculous face that I was making for some reason at the YMCA team that I played for in San Francisco. And the truth is, like, I was never that good, obviously, but when I was like really young, I was really good for both my age and my size, like weirdly good. So by the time, like, I played like AAU and I played high school, and I was like decent, but when I was like 6, 7, 8, like I would score like 20 points at these rec games.
Oh my God.
And like I was very
I hate to cut you off. What you mean you're not good, or you weren't that good?
Well, no, I was like really young, and I had these pair of Jordans that were like tiny. And I was also like, I'm obviously not like very big now, but I was like really small for a while. And I remember there was this like rec game in California where I like, I just played really well, and like the whole family, it was just like the crowd was kind of going wild, and like everyone was calling me Baby Jordan after the game, and that was like definitely when I hit my peak. I was like, there's like some great photos there. But I was definitely like when I got older, I was really good at like controlling the pace of a game. I think that's like the best skill I had. I was point guard, and I was definitely not the most athletic person. I had the best endurance probably of most people on the teams, but I wasn't like a high scorer after a while, but I could like pass really well, and I could like see the court. What they say in the biz, I had a high basketball IQ. So I like really modeled my play after like Steve Nash.
I was just gonna say that. That sounds like you sound like a Steve Nash kind of player.
Yeah.
man.
And
So
I did like I had like his floater too, which my high school coach hated. He used to,
really?
every time I missed it, he screamed at me. Yeah, because I was like, and I could draw charges really well. Those were like the things I did well, but I was not super physical and I wasn't very good at driving. So I would like float. Instead of drawing a foul, I would like float it a lot, and if it went in, it was fine. But if I missed it, it would. I got in a lot of trouble for that.
Sounds like a coach was jealous because that is an elite floater. I used to love Steve Nash back in the
Yeah,
day, and I was like, okay, that's kind of what your game sounds like, because Steve Nash, he could shoot the three and everything, but he could see the court, make the flashy passes and all that stuff. So I love that Jordan shoes thing. I don't know if you've seen the movie Like Mike with Little Bow Wow and
oh, I
everything.
was obsessed with that movie. I think I've seen that movie like more than Matilda. I can't believe I didn't say, yeah, Lil Bow Wow in that movie. Oh my God.
What's his
That
name?
was like my dream.
Calvin Cambridge or something like that. That's what it sounds like. That's see, if I asked you the superhero question, you should have said Calvin Cambridge, because that's what it sounds like. You put
Yeah.
a pair of Jordans on, and every now and then you Steve Nash, dropping 20, seeing the court and everything like that. Okay.
Yeah, no, that was definitely the vibe. I was really into, yeah, oh my God, that movie. So good.
That was
I was obsessed though. Like I knew everything about the NBA for a while. I also like had one of those baskets that went over the door. Do you know what I'm talking
yeah.
about?
Oh, I
And
used to
I would
have
like,
those.
yeah. And I would like come home after school and I would like take 1,000, left-handed layups so I could learn how to do a left-hand flip when I was like, 7. I had this like weird amount of discipline for like these minute details in the game, and then kind of eventually went away. But
I used to be like Vince Carter on those things. I used
oh,
to run through those because they used to
you
call.
wanted to do dunks.
Yeah, I'm like, trying to put it under the legs and everything and just throwing it down. I go to like the corner and everything, and I'm just like, shooting J's and
Oh
all
yeah.
that stuff.
Did you watch And1?
Yes.
Yeah. I also like, there was the professor, which is really ironic now, who's
Yes.
the only white guy that played.
He's still
And
playing.
no way.
Yeah, he's going to like random parks, challenging people. Grayson something. Professor, if you listen to, go ahead and sponsor this show. We talk about you, man. But yeah, that used to be Professor and Hot Sauce. Those used to
Oh
be
my God, hot sauce. Yeah.
And1 Mixtape tour, man. ESPN used to come on and like, yes, I used to watch that. You see, not a lot of people can relate to Hannah and I because we're kind of old souls
I know.
and stuff.
I was obsessed with that stuff. Oh my
Oh,
God.
man. Escalade.
Oh, Escalade. Was the guy named the Spider, or was that the move? I can't
His
remember
name
it.
is Spider.
Okay, there was a spider, but then he used to do the dunk where he'd like put his feet up on the backboard or
Yeah.
something. That was so crazy.
Be like, oh snap, maybe if I can learn that, and then quickly realize like, it's a travel.
I know. There was no rules of that. That was great.
So wow, that's awesome. So one thing that I find curious, so you described your basketball game, pretty well. So you were, like I said, I needed to know about the baller within. And so we definitely got that. But you were a runner. You ran for NYU, and tell me Pittsburgh, I want to say?
Yeah, I didn't run a pit though.
Okay, NYU. That's more important.
Yeah.
And so you ran at NYU. You still run now. So you have a understanding about the sport as a collegiate athlete. It sounds, listening to you describe how you were as a baller, I'm still gonna see no. So let's just put it this way: we're gonna make you an And1 Mixtape name on this show. You're gonna be Dr. B or Dr. Steen. That's what we're gonna call you, Dr. Steen. Yeah. So you being the baller that's within, it sounds to me, just based on your point guard, it sounds like some of that translated to running. Am I wrong in kind of thinking that?
No, I think you're right. I think like, yeah, I didn't have nearly as long of like I haven't raced a lot, but I think one thing that was weird was that I really liked indoor track. And I think part of that was because of like the environment. It felt more like a basketball gym to me because everyone's like way closer and it's just like it's much more intense environment. I mean, I love like running on trails now and stuff like that. But I think I like really like the team element too. And so that feels like a pretty point guardy thing. I haven't thought about it in those terms, but now I really want to. But I think probably, yeah, like in terms of controlling the pace of things and being patient, I think I was like decent at that. I don't know. Or maybe I'm more decent at it now.
Honestly, listening to how you describe, it's funny. The first time I saw you run, we were on a walk. It was me, Dana, Catherine Burgess.
Oh yeah, that was like before we even met in person, I think.
Yeah, and it was like Nikki, and we were like, we didn't know who was there. And then it was like, oh snap, that's Hannah running like down the trail and everything. So I didn't know you didn't run a pit. That's, it's interesting. That is a pretty awesome way to start at NYU, like the Mecca and all that stuff. Like,
yeah, well, probably wouldn't. I wasn't really running. I didn't really run towards the end of high school. I like stopped running for several years, and then I actually like didn't do anything. And then I started running after I left Pitt, like over the summer, just to, yeah, sort of for my body, but not like in a serious way. And yeah, the competitive flow eventually came back. In my mind, I thought like I had to be a student when I like transferred to NYU. I was like, I can't be like involved in sports. Like I need to, because for all of my high school, I was like such a athlete that in this like small high school that I went to, and I felt like no one would take me seriously. I had like major imposter syndrome when I got to NYU.
really?
Like I really didn't, yeah, because I transferred there, which is like always easier. Now, like I don't care. Now I'm like, that's smart. Like everyone should do that. Like transfer to a better school if that's what you want. But I felt like I wasn't like smart enough to be there, and like I didn't belong there, and so on and so forth. So I felt like I really had to like focus on school for a while.
Listening to you describe yourself as a point guard, I don't know if you thought about it, but your writing style is literally, it makes sense now. Like I'm just sitting here listening, I'm like, oh Lord have mercy. Like it makes sense and everything like that, because it's very descriptive in how you write and how you tell stories. So like, wow, like I said, Dr. B, listen, go ahead and give her that PhD. We don't need to do another year of that.
Yeah, I really like that. I want to like put that on my CV now, like point guard with a pen or something like that.
Point guard, like I said, Dr. Steen and everything like that. So you recently, and it's going to be published sometime in 2022. You wrote about Hey Arnold, which we're going to get to briefly, but you wrote about the gentrification. When I tell y'all Hannah is deep, it's like scuba diving kind of deep with how she goes. And if you hear noises in the background, people popping off fireworks, and it's not even New Year's yet, but
It's a little early.
yeah, it's crazy. But you wrote about gentrification, and it makes so much sense. Like going back and rewatching the episode, there's a couple episodes talk about, and I'm not going to give too much away, but there's another episode that I thought about. It's when the two bullies, there was a new bully, and I guess his name was Wolfgang or whatever, and they were fighting over territory, and they split Arnold and Helga and all those up, and they played football, and they kind of ran them off that lot that they created. And so we talk about gentrification. I'll give you the floor. How have you seen that in the sport of track and field? Just in general, from the top level, and I'm not even going to put a label on it, just how have you seen it impact the sport of track and field?
Yeah, I mean, it's a great question. And like when we were talking before, it's like there's so many different directions you could go with this question, because I feel like, I mean, gentrification is like it's happening in our world. So anything that's happening in the world is impacting track and field, because like these are not separate spheres, right?
Yeah.
So I think there's a lot of different ways to look at it. I think the most obvious way is probably like events and like the construction of stadiums and the construction of facilities and things like that. Like you think about something like LA 2028 and where things are being built, and that's going to benefit obviously some people, mostly like real estate developers, but is going to kick a lot of people in LA neighborhoods where they're building facilities out. And I think like one of the really ironic things about track and field is that like the athletes don't make that much money and they're not like profiting off of these things. So something like the LA Olympics, like the athletes aren't even getting paid. So you're going to have a lot of athletes, I bet, especially from the US, who's, whether or not they actually live in LA or not, like it could be their family members, or like maybe it is their family members who are going to be placed out of those homes because they can't afford them anymore. And then like even within the sport, you know, gentrification, like again, the athletes in track and field, they're so not well taken care of that a lot of times it's hard for them to afford the places that they need to live to get to the facilities that they need to train in. And I've seen this like happen. I mean, you could think of really a lot of sprinting is like in, I mean, I know there's a lot in Florida, but there's also a lot in like Southern California where it's really prohibitively expensive to live. And, you know, maybe there's a training group and they have to live in Boulder, which is like one of the most expensive places in the country. So, you know, I think that there's like both sport can create processes of gentrification, both, you know, sort of from the top down. But then I think from the bottom up too, you have athletes who are like really struggling. And I think they don't always want to talk about it. And I totally get why. But I do think that we have a responsibility to like talk about also their access to like a pie of track and field, because, you know, like they have these really precarious contracts and they're not high earning and they don't get revenue shares. And like, it's really hard for them just to like make ends meet a lot of the time.
There are more people that have to work, you know, other jobs in addition to training and stuff like that. And, you know, we praise those stories like, you know, that's great. I'm like, you know, that's nice, you know, in theory, but in reality, that sucks. Like you have to work a 9 to 5, you're a professional athlete. You have to work a 9 to 5, and then you have to, you know, find ways to get the training, the treatment and stuff like that. Here in Orlando, I used to work for the former school that I went to. I was a shot put and discs coach, and we have the track is, unless they've redone it, you know, the track is not what it used to be, but it used to be, you know, a nice Olympic sized track. It's a little bit, you know, outdated, but like Stephen Gardner trained there and all that stuff. And it's crazy to me because, you know, it costs money to train other places. And one thing, you know, I'm interested to hear your thoughts about this. I was thinking about contracts and thinking about different, you know, especially shoe companies. It seems to me, and maybe this isn't exact gentrification, but they tend to, for example, the 100 meters does not get the same cut as the long jump. Now you have like Brittany Reese, who has won a countless amount of medals. And it's a very difficult thing. You have Mondo Duplantis, you have, you know, I can't think of a Nike, and maybe that's ignorance on my part, my bad to the steeplechase, but you have somebody, you know, like that. Yeah, exactly. Courtney Ferris, you know, who, oh God, my bad, Bowerman, forgive me. But you have like these athletes, you know, who have these very difficult events. That's not saying there's no event in track and field that is easy, but the high degree of difficulty when it comes to some of these events, they don't get from the shoe companies. You know, Brittany Reese could win 35,000 gold medals, but she still will not get, you know, what she deserves. That's going to go to
the like under coverage of her in Tokyo is crazy.
It's insane. Yeah. Shot putters and stuff like that.
Yeah.
It's difficult. And, you know, now that we say it, it's kind of, even, I hate to say it, USA Track and Field, even the TV markets, and I get it. You have to put what sells. You have to put what sells.
But you also can't sell anything unless you put it out there.
Yeah. So we don't even know one of the best, the shot put competition, Ryan Krauser and Joe Kovacs. You know, some of these, you know, incredible competitions. I remember a few years ago watching Molly Huddle and Shannon Roberry, I believe it was the 5K. And that last 800 meters was epic. but none of this stuff gets the attention. And it's like we're trying to save shoes by cutting off feet. That's kind of how I look at it. Is there going to be a price to pay for the direction in which, not even just the shoe companies, fine, the shoe companies, whatever the case might be, Nike's not gonna, at least for right now, they're not gonna give the athletes the respect they deserve. And like you said, Brittany Reese, they should put some respect on her name for all the things she's done and people who are like her in that situation. But even, people with the TV rights, is there gonna be a price to pay for what they're doing, to these athletes and how they're undercutting them and underselling them?
Yeah, totally. I mean, I think like it's to your point of, how these contracts are made and actually what they say. Part of the problem is, like we don't know because they're all NDA'd, but the, there's this logic about like sponsoring athletes in particular and what events are quote unquote popular that are based on like the sort of more like the researcher in me is like, we haven't asked good research, but we haven't done good research about this because a lot of it is speculative, but it's speculation based on only one model that's been applied, which is like, oh, this person, they're marketable for X, Y, and Z. I think until very recently, that's been like, they're white, like they have this kind of following, like these kinds of people want to buy our shoes. Yeah. This is the kind of story that a track and field fan likes. Like there's this mentality, right? And so that's why this person is, you see this a lot with African athletes in particular. It's like they're not as marketable, like their contracts for sure are way lower. Like to get you could be running 10 minutes faster in the marathon and you have half the size of a contract if you're an Ethiopian athlete versus an American athlete. And there's always this argument, it's like, well, they're not marketable, but no one's really actually tried to market them. So I think that there's that. And then your question about like the TV rights and stuff, there's this panic always in our sport to be like, this isn't popular. Like we can't do this. It's not fast paced. It's not blah, blah, blah. And there is some truth to that, but there hasn't been like a lot of effort, I think, on the part of broadcasters to make certain things legible to audiences who might not know the sport that well. So in my opinion, one of those things is certainly talking about the lives of the athletes. Like in a distance event, it's crazy that we don't know anything about, the African athletes who are going 1, 2, 3, and we're only talking about the person in fourth. But then for something like the shot put, obviously it's a bit trickier. I don't know how you do it over broadcasting, but like one thing I was thinking about when Eliud Kipchoge broke like the marathon 2 hour, it was either when he broke the world record and we broke 2 hours in the marathon. They had in a bunch of marathons this like treadmill that went the pace that he was running. And so people could like jump on and there was a lot of padding and they could see how like long they could run with Eliud Kipchoge. Why is there not like a place outside of track meet where you have like a shot put for people to come and pick up and like see how heavy it is? You know what I'm saying? And like see how far you can throw compared to these pros. Cause then you see like, yeah, all they do is throw a shot put, but like so much farther than like literally anyone in the world could do it. Like so much. And it's the same thing with like, these track run, like the sprinters or, I think it'd be great at some of these bigger track meets if they had like interactive elements to see or, okay, so person jumping the high jump, like that's like jumping over what 2 cars stacked on top of each other. Like, I think that there are ways they can do that within the broadcasting too. If you look at like a basic, basketball game broadcast versus track broadcast, there's so many more like interactive elements that you can see. I mean, stats for sure, but like, I think about distance running a lot. It's crazy that, you only see the person in first and we can't have like a little track with like little dots at least showing how far back the other people are. We can't have split screens so we can show field events and track events at the same time. Like these are really, I don't know how to do it, but they seem like very basic, like, technological fixes.
Back in the day, and listen, you're preaching. I agree wholeheartedly. Back in the day, I don't know if you remember this, but ESPN had a segment called Sports Science. And so pretty much what they would do is they would get a dummy and they did it with football or whatever. And so they would have, it sounded like Jeremy Tash, but I'm not exactly sure who it was, but he would be the one that would, break it down. So or it wasn't even a dummy. It was just a random guy in pads and a helmet. And they were breaking down this person. It was like, they're going at the exact speed of 21 miles an hour. You compare that to a car
Oh,
or
I totally remember what you're talking about now.
something like this. Or let's look at tackling. They're coming at the force. Listen, I'm bad at math. I'm not even going to try to, replicate what he was saying. But they're coming at a force of X, Y, and Z. That is the equivalent of. I feel like it's so easy to do that in track and field, and stuff like that. I remember watching a football game. It was in 2014. It was Ohio State versus Minnesota. It was 19 degrees there. It was snowing. And Tom, I'm going to mess up his last name, held a football. And so he literally 1 minute explained the difference between throwing, why it would be an issue trying to throw the football in the snow, because the moisture of your hand, there's more moisture that comes, makes the football, wet. It's hard to grip the football. This is why the athletes are wearing gloves. But there's no, like, I wrote a story on Trey Hardy and Simon Richards-Ross because I think they do a great job. I think the sprints, for the most part, they do a pretty good job. But distance runners and, field events, you have to pay a separate service you have to have and NBC Gold is not cheap. Like, how much fried chicken I could buy, instead of paying, for NBC Gold and stuff like that. That's not cheap. That does not help, the athletes. And so it's like we're killing ourselves because we're not, and it's like, no wonder they don't trust us, and stuff like that. So I don't know. I definitely agree, with what you're saying. And so before we switch gears, I guess just based on everything we've learned, based on what we just talked about, based on the examples and scenarios that are the issues, and even based on what we learned in Magic Boost, because we all got different perspectives. And I have to say, I didn't realize it got cold like that in Oregon in August. That was a that was a culture shock. But where do we go from here? How do we change this? Specifically and I'm not talking about, the subscriptions and all that stuff. I'm talking about in our field of expertise. How do we, flip the narrative? I think you're doing a great job of doing that because you're bringing to light causes and actual issues when, whether it's Ethiopia or the Pan-African Games or just the different things, that you're doing research on, and the different things that you're finding and bringing to light, and the people that you're introducing to the world, essentially. But where does the change start?
Yeah, just for the listeners too, when Dom says it was cold, it was like 70.
Okay.
It was in the 60s or
Listen, it was cold, and I was struggling.
Kid talking. No, I mean, I think that I actually am optimistic in a lot of ways, especially after that program. Like, despite everything we just said, I think there are a lot of great people that have great ideas. But yeah, I think that, kind of like we've been talking about this whole time, I think getting new voices is for sure the key, especially voices who can identify with the athletes, yeah, who have had, even if they're not athletes, who have just had similar upbringings, who are from the places that they grew up, and understand maybe their lives a little bit better, which I definitely think Magic Boost had. Because the athletes respond to it, but also then you're bringing in so many different perspectives. And I think collaboration is really the way of, we saw what happened with Simone Biles and Naomi Osaka, and these athletes are under a tremendous amount of pressure. Oh, and yeah, if we can alleviate that by making either, altogether abolishing or making the press conference a very different experience for them. Yeah. So we get better stories, but they also end up having longer and healthier careers. I try and I would in my sort of utopian vision, I would like all of these processes to be more collaborative in terms of the storytelling and again, how we utilize each other. If there's some kind of historical context that I can provide to someone else's story, I hope they reach out. you know? And like, I don't, if I somehow end up in a position where I'm supposed to be covering like a shot putter, like I would definitely call you, you know what I mean? And like, either maybe you should write the story, or maybe like at least you'll give me some insight to, so that it'll be a much better thing.
Yeah.
So I hope that these relationships like that we've created can help us do that. And the ones that we've created with the athletes. Like, I know you've been really good at that over the years of like having these long-term relationships that like, I mean, that's what this whole thing is about. You know, you can try and approach someone and ask them, fire a few questions at them from, you know, behind an iPhone that you're recording from. But if you've never like spoken to that person, you know, it's not going to be that interesting. So, but I think a lot of us are trying to do things a little bit differently now. So I am excited about that.
Hey, listen, the future's bright for the Magic Boost program. Definitely check us out. And obviously the future classes as well. But now it's time for serious business, Hannah. We got to talk 90s Nickelodeon shows, and we'll even sprinkle some business stuff in there. That's the purpose of this podcast, is to talk 90s Nick shows. What's the I don't want to say the golden, what is the show? Like if somebody had to start with the show, what is the show that you say this is what life is about? The 90s show.
Oh, for sure. For me, Hey Arnold. Like, there's just no question.
What character do you relate to in that?
Okay, I was thinking about this today because obviously this weird guy, I knew we were gonna like at least touch on this. And I don't think like I'm really a lot like one of them, but I think that there are elements, and maybe this is what makes it so good, of like especially probably the three main characters in my mind that I do relate to. And like when I look back, obviously that changes, but I think like I think I'm pretty diplomatic, or I can be. And I think that is an Arnold feature. So I definitely like relate to that. And I think I think he is very good at most of the time, like trying to put himself in other people's position. But he does like miss a lot of things. And I think his flawedness is also important. Um, Gerald is obsessed with like lore and like urban tales, and that is super me. I'm really into like finding out these weird. I went down a deep rabbit hole today learning about some like superstition that Japanese baseball fans are into. Like I love these kind of stories that this is like the anthropologist, like, you know, people rally around like curses on baseball teams and things like that. So I think there's an element of me there. And then I think I definitely have parts of Helga, and did when I was a kid. I don't think I was ever quite as angry as she was, but I think that she's remembered as this like very angry child, and she is, but she's also like a tomboy, and she's like actually pretty good at baseball, low key. And like she's always kind of straddling these worlds, and she doesn't belong. And I feel like I belong places, but I think when I was a kid, it was harder for me to, you know, I was like very into sports, but, you know, wanted to have meaningful friendships with other girls. And like, I don't know, I think, so I get sort of where she's coming from. I don't think I identify with her most because I think she's a bit too
Helga crazy.
aggressive.
That's
But
putting it lightly. I've never seen anybody throw a fade like Helga Pataki and everything like that. And I will say this, it fixed the time because I've never seen a beeper store, you know, with
yeah,
person.
I know it's a beeper emporium.
Yeah, the beeper emporium. I'm sorry. I would struggle having Olga as a sister too.
Yeah, she's a perfect older sister. Like that's a real relatable thing. And she has this insanely passionate love for someone, and she can't express it. And like we've all had versions of that, you know?
Yeah.
For me, it doesn't come, you know, the result is not me like, I don't think I was ever mean to anyone in the way the Helgas were mean to a lot of people. So
Helga, I don't know how she did not get found out like early on. Like it's the closest was when, you know, the locket, she had the locket for Arnold, and I think the pig took it, Albert,
Oh, Abner. Yeah.
Abner took it. Like that was the closest, and yeah, it showed her athleticism and determination, to kind of get what she wanted. I think Helga was misunderstood. This is the
I think she's also like a lot smarter than the other fourth graders.
She is
She's really smart, so I feel like that would be frustrating.
I'm trying to figure out, is there someone on that show I related to, and I'm actually having trouble. I think, as bad as it sounds, it's a mixture of Eugene and Mr. Green, the butcher.
What?
Yeah.
You do not strike me as Eugene.
A little.
He's always getting into accidents and like.
I was 4. I walked into the air system, just walked right into it. I don't know how. I was Eugene because I tried to make the best out of every situation.
That's fair. Okay.
Mr. Green, he liked food, and that was me. That was my dog right there. Mr. Green, and when he was kind of that, and I think you kind of relate to it too. There's kind of like this toughness that you have to have and stuff like that. And in his own way, he wanted to make a difference. He didn't exactly, know how. Gerald, the swag. I definitely.
You have very intense Gerald energy.
Really?
Yeah, because you're like very smooth with words. You're very sort of intentional about the things that you say.
Okay, shout out to Gerald. See, back in the day, I used to be Gerald because I used to have a fro.
Oh my God, where are these photos?
I that's a conversation for when the show is over. the public can't see that. I think I made a put on Instagram, but yeah, I used to have a fro back in the day. Can't grow one out now, but yeah, Gerald. It's funny. The show that I related to was I don't know. There's 2 shows. So my 2 go-to shows. So let me ask you this in fairness, and should have guessed. Give me a top 3.
Oh no, I want to hear what yours were. I want to hear yours. I want to hear what you're going to say.
My go-to show was the Rugrats.
That's my number 2 for sure.
Followed by Doug.
Yeah.
And then it's a 2-way tie between Hey Arnold. Well, no, I'm gonna give it to Hey Arnold. I was gonna say Cat Dog, but that was just pure entertainment. I say Cat Dog because everybody knows the Greasers and everybody has a Winslow in their life that you just want to punt like an extra point. You want to kick it like an extra point. The Rugrats, for whatever reason, I feel like I related to Chucky Finster.
Okay, that I like weirdly can see.
So
even though I just called you a smooth talker from Hey Arnold, I do see the Chucky relation.
So I want to hear from an outside point of view why.
I just feel like Chucky was really smart. I mean, maybe I definitely like Hey Arnold's very fresh in my mind because I've recently watched it. But my like remembering it was like Chucky was really smart and he's totally Tommy's right-hand man.
Yeah.
And so like Tommy's nothing without Chucky. Exactly. And Tommy gets a lot of the glory for being sort of like the brave baby, which is so weird to say right now.
Got this bald-headed baby. Need a change. Yeah.
Like, because you will like often defer, like if someone else talks, like you'll like let them go. You'll kind of like let them speak. You're very polite, and but I think you're like often, yeah, you can be the sort of brains behind the operation. So
okay, yeah. But
I'm curious, why you identify with Chucky?
Chucky was grew up in a single family, with his dad Chaz. Now my mom is nothing like Chaz. Let's get that out the way. She's very kind, very nice, but Chad was like scared. My mom, like I said, she had that kindness and everything, but I think that, and then you're trying to find your place. Obviously you don't want to tilt the balance of, Tommy just didn't care. Tommy, they don't know discipline and stuff like that. Chucky was always err on the side of caution in some ways. I think that was me. And then his glasses always used to fall, and if you dropped them, he couldn't see, and that's definitely me. And stuff like that. So that's why I'm like, Chucky.
Chucky, there was that episode, I don't know if you remember it, where Chucky has that dream about, I think and it's because he's probably from a single parent household, but someone like, I forget if someone tells him that he's adopted or like something like that. Yep. And he has that dream where like, they like he has like a parent or both of them, and they like take off these costumes at night. Yeah, and I remember that being like, that's like so deep for a little kid.
It's such an iconic like episode. Even like there's so many, that's the thing about 90s shows, and that's why I was so excited to have this conversation. There's so many deep philosophical like life lessons in that. Doug Funny is somebody that I, kind of relate to, from, him being so expressive. And in some ways I can kind of relate to Skeeter as well. But Doug Funny, I don't know. There's just something about him, just a new guy on the block, trying to make his way. He's socially awkward, and stuff like that. I don't have a dog. And I gotta give a shout out to whoever came up with the names, because just I'm thinking
Patty
about
Mayonnaise.
Yeah, Patty Mayonnaise. Like I was listening to Swag Surfing, and that's like the line of the century. He's like, "Shawty, check my Dougie like she's Patty Mayonnaise." I was like, "Oh my God, that's like brilliant," and stuff like that. Doug Funny, Patty Mayonnaise, Pork Chop, and then you get Roger. Like the crate just like stopped, after that. So yeah, I think, I relate to, him as well. And then, we talk about Hey Arnold and stuff like that. But who would be your top three when it comes to shows? What's your top three?
Those are like, actually, I mean, legitimately my top three too. I would probably say Rugrat. I think Doug, I need to like go back and rewatch it, because I'm sure I like don't remember it as well for some reason, but I'm sure like as I would, it would come back. But those were definitely the three. Cat Dog was just wild. Like that's my association. It was just nuts. Yeah, so those are probably, and the interesting thing about all of them now too, looking back, especially some of the smaller casted ones, like they are pretty like boy heavy casts a lot of the times.
Yeah.
Because I remember like identifying too with Angelica a little bit on Rugrats, and I think, and it's weird that I was like identifying with all these mean girls, because I really was like not a mean kid at all. I was actually quite nice, but I think it was like, I mean, there was Lil, but she was like such a tertiary character that you barely got to like, you didn't get the same level of depth. Whereas Angelica, there was at least given this sort of like, she was given this kind of depth.
Angelica, don't even do that. Angelica, I have a question. It's gonna be the last one before we get to the rapid fire, and then we'll wrap up this one. Oh, that evil little girl, no, you're not. You are more of a Susie Carmichael.
Oh, okay, that's interesting.
Like far, far more than a Susie. Or, and this is when they screwed up the Rugrats, when they brought Kimmy in.
Oh yeah, that got bad though. I feel like I checked out mentally.
I didn't like really. I kind of checked out. I was holding on when they brought Dylan, and then I like started realizing name like Dill Pickles. Like, okay, cool. Like, okay, that's a weird.
Yeah, and then they did that like all grown up. That was so weird.
Worse. That's what it's still on TV. They have a whole series on it now.
I don't like that at all.
Keep them as babies and stuff like
that. That's like the beauty of Hey Arnold, and like they're in fourth grade for like 12 years. Like they're never not in fourth grade. And it's like Rugrats, like they're just babies. Just let them be babies forever. That's the whole point.
Like they keep getting held back and everything, and that's all right.
Exactly. They don't age.
Yeah. Let's talk about villains. Top three. Wait, let me ask this. Honorable mention show.
Ooh, I don't even know. Well, I guess this is a little bit later. This might even be 2000s. But like Rocket Power, did you watch Rocket Power?
I did. Mine's not Rocket Power, but yeah, I did watch Rocket Power.
Yeah, I don't know. There were just like so many like iconic little things in that show that stuck with me. So I would say that, which is I'm probably like too old for that, but
no, because it was just kind of like, because Rocket Power came like right before SpongeBob, like.
Yeah, I guess that's true. I feel like I'm missing something too.
So,
what about you?
Honorable mention. So there's like 3. Sorry, but there's All Real Monsters. There is, oh frick. It was the show with all these bugs, and I cannot. Oh, no, this is different. Rocco's Modern Life.
Yeah, I was gonna bring up Rocco's, but I feel like there was like a lot of gross things in that show.
It was really, well, first of all, the dude's name was Heifer. So I was like, okay, like that was weird, but for whatever reason, I like that show. And then there was a show called As Told by Ginger.
Oh, yeah, I remember that one. Oh, we didn't even bring up the Wild Thornberrys.
Oh my gosh, how did I forget that?
Yeah,
it used to be my jam. Like,
yeah, like that show was amazing. I mean, oh my god,
you relate so much
Donnie.
to Eliza. No, because Eliza was brave. She traveled. Donnie spoke in hieroglyphics.
Yeah, there was like Darwin, who is that really pretentious like that lived with them or something.
Yeah, Darwin. Debbie was interesting. Nigel was probably the weirdest dude I've ever seen.
Here's a good question based on that show. If you could talk to one animal,
oh my god,
one like species, what would you choose? Like, you couldn't talk to all of them.
Elephant.
Okay, I respect that. They're really smart.
And I feel like they have so much wisdom.
They have like incredible memories.
Yeah. So like if you owed them some money, like, they would know it, or
yeah.
I don't know, it's either an elephant or a dove.
I like how your go-to was like, if you owed them money, they would know it.
I mean, I don't know. How about you?
No, I mean, that's like definitely how my mind works 90% of the time. An elephant or a dove, those are 2. Yeah.
How about you?
It would be penguins because of my like history with penguins, because I love them. But it would be really fun to talk to like a cheetah, as track journalists, and be like, what does it feel like to be the fastest animal in the world?
Yeah.
Hold them like.
The first question I'll ask cheetah is like, do you think Tyreek Hill could beat Usain Bolt?
Exactly, that's what I'm saying. Like, there's just so much good material here.
Yeah. The cheetah be like, nah, fam, I smoke them both, and wow, I never really thought about that. Yeah, it would be, but yeah, you like roll up on the elephant. It's like, hey man, you owe me lunch money from like the other week, or like a couple and stuff like that. So yeah. So last one before we get to a quick rapid fire, then we'll wrap it up. Top 3 villains.
Yeah, it's gonna be like the same people I identified with, I feel like.
So
like Angelica's gotta be like number 1.
Yeah.
There's so many in Hey Arnold, but they're all also they're somewhat redemptive.
Yeah.
Like the Jolly Ollie Man is like evil most of the time, but then he like has his like episode. That's the thing about Hey Arnold, is they give everyone their moment to like have an explanation or background to like explain why they are the way they are. Yeah, and then I mean, Miss Trunchbuble's like definitely one that sticks in my mind too. Not a TV show, but yeah. How about you?
Angelica, Roger Klotz. Oh
yeah, Roger's a good one.
Drawn blank. That weird looking dude on Rocket Power. That the he was married to the nice lady.
I can't remember.
Not Rocket Power, not Rocket Power. Rocco's Modern Life.
Oh, I don't know.
Yeah, so y'all go look it up because I'm
Anticlimactic.
And then I just have to say this before we go forward. 4 shows that were actually pretty epic back in the day because it was better than MTV. The Amanda Show,
Oh my God.
all that, and Keenan and Cal, yes. Dun, dun, dun. And Nick at Night or Nick News with Linda Ellery.
Oh my God. Yes.
It was time to go to sleep and everything like that. So we're gonna wrap this up with a bow. We're gonna do something that I like to call down the home stretch. I'm gonna ask you a few rapid fire questions, and you have to answer them to the best of your ability.
Okay.
If there was a food that you had to live without for the rest of your life, what would it be?
Apples.
Really?
Yeah. Oh. I eat like at least one a day, usually more. And anyone that knows me knows that that's like, yeah, I need them to survive. Okay. And coffee, but coffee's a drink, so I don't know if that counts.
You can do coffee.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I probably coffee then first, to be honest.
Okay. I hate coffee.
Oh, you don't drink coffee because
I hope that they abolish it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I hate it with all my heart. If you had to be a guest on one 90s show, what would it be?
Ooh. I mean, I feel like my answer is always going to be handled to everything, but beyond that, the Wild Thornberrys then for sure.
I like that.
Yeah, you could be anywhere. I mean, that would be so cool.
Actually,
I'm gonna choose the Wild Thornberrys. The setting is definitely way better.
That is one of the saddest movies in the world, the Wild Thornberrys.
I don't remember the movie that well.
Okay, well, the first part is sad when they ship her away, or whatever the case might be, to boarding school.
Oh, okay.
Stuff. That's a good one. That kind of stumped me. Okay. What is a theme song that you would say best describes your life?
A theme song?
Or just a regular song?
Oh, a regular song. Oh, sorry. Okay. Like not from, okay. To like get out of the 90s mindset.
It's okay.
Jeez. I have no idea. My mind is like so far from music. I would have to open like my Spotify or something.
Okay, let's change it. Let's say a book.
Okay. A book to that
would best describe your life.
I'm just gonna come back to like the same things I know. This is so boring.
It's okay.
Matilda is the only thing that comes to mind, which is crazy.
I love yeah. That's okay. Favorite place to vacation?
This is probably surprising because I travel a lot, but well, I guess I don't like vacation a ton, but I think like Colorado in the summer, as we spoke about, and like anywhere warm in the winter that's my ideal timeline. But yeah, the mountains in the summer are like my favorite.
I'm like telling him how cold it is in Orlando, and that's like hiking weather, whatever the case might be. Okay. Best venue that you've attended?
For like a concert, or just in general?
In general. It could be a concert, it could be athletics, it could be anything.
Okay, I have a good answer to this. Going to like a domestic track meet in Ethiopia, either the national championships in the stadium in the capital or the like junior championships in this little like rinky-dink town a couple hours south of Addis where like people go nuts. But I was at a track meet in the capital like a year ago, the national championships, and the men's 10K was going on. The power went out during the middle of the race, and like you've never seen a stadium so invested in 10K. So that was pretty sweet.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. If there was an event that you could run that you've never run before, what would you do?
Ooh, there's so many. Probably like a trail, like something, I don't know. I mean, there's like really cool ones that sound so painful, like the Hard Rock 100. It's like in the San Juan Mountains of Colorado. I mean, I'm not like ready for it by any means, so probably never will be. But in terms of like the scenery and the terrain, it seems like pretty cool. It's just like beautiful trails and like some of those beautiful mountains, and so probably that.
Two more. Oh, voice crack. Sorry about that. Two more. What is a trend that you wish would go away?
Oh God, I feel like I don't even know what trends are like happening right now.
We're not okay. So let's change it because
it's just our time.
So we can change.
I don't have TikTok, so I don't get that. Like,
yeah, that's okay. Yeah, that's weird. Well, I can't say that because I'm going to end up using TikTok to promote this podcast. So I can't say that. What 90s trend that would you wish would come back?
Ooh, I mean, I think some of the fashion definitely is. Yeah, so probably like that. I mean, I feel like there was also probably just like a 90s, I don't know, we were kids, so it's hard to know. Oh, you know what comes to mind? This is super random. Everyone should look it up. I'm pretty sure they're called Prestos. They were a shoe that like you could slide on and they didn't have laces.
Prestos?
And I think they were called Prestos. I think they were Nikes. I just remember having them.
They Presto shoes.
Like, I want to see if I can find a photo of them.
Okay, so Nike did a vitalization, it looks like, on Presto shoes.
Yeah, they look too normal though. These shoes look like crazy. I mean, one thing that's always so funny about like looking back at it was like a projection of the future. It was like a futuristic shoe, I feel like, but now it probably looks so different.
Oh my gosh, no, don't bring these back.
I know they're so ugly, but I don't know why they popped into my mind. I just remember like having them when I was a kid and like thinking they were the coolest things.
These things right here?
No. Wait, I don't think so.
Okay, you can't see it. I'll send it to you. Oh no, don't bring these back. You need to buy another pair and throw them both in the trash. Okay. Yeah, don't do that. No, that made my stomach up.
This isn't Nikes, but I was like pretty big into Dunks, and I think they are coming back.
Okay. Well,
I mean, wasn't Prestos, yeah.
Last question. Best basketball player you've seen in your lifetime?
Oh God, this is so controversial. I'm just gonna get so many haters. Like seeing
it, you can see him in person or on TV. I didn't ask you MJ versus LeBron. You can pick anybody you want to.
I mean, I think that like LeBron is amazing. It's pretty hard to. I actually did see him when he played Charlotte in North Carolina, and it was pretty remarkable to see in person. So I think that the way that he like commands presence is pretty remarkable. So I'd probably say him, but I loved watching Steve Nash play. Like I really did. It was just, yeah, he was a beautiful player. So, yeah, I'm like definitely blanking on so many people. And like, I mean, my family is like a Warriors family. So I also will get a lot of shit for this, or sorry, flack for this too. But
it's okay.
Steph Curry for sure. But like Andre Iguodala is like one of my favorite players, though. I'll say that right now in the game, if not my favorite.
He is one of the most interesting human beings in the world.
Yeah,
cannot shoot a free throw to save his life.
No, he does like pretty. His celebrations are epic.
Very epic.
And it's his style of play. I think he brings like maybe more passion to the game right now than most NBA players.
Oh wow. Okay.
He cares about his team for sure.
Iggy, you got a fan, brother. Listen, Hannah, you are the GOAT. Actually, Dr. Hannah Borenstein, the baller. I'm so glad you came on the show. I'm so glad that everyone got a chance to know a little bit about you. Where can they follow you on social media and follow your work?
Just probably on Twitter. I'm not that consistent, but it's just my last name, Borenstein 23. And yeah, I have a website. That's where I try and keep it relatively up to date with publications. But yeah, thanks for having me. after, you know, we get offline, I'm sure we'll talk about Nickelodeon for another hour and a half. So
Hannah is the GOAT, and I'm so glad that you all had a chance to know her. I know that was very redundant, so forgive me. But this has been another episode of the Lactic Acid Podcast. You can follow us on Twitter at Lactic Acid _pod. You can follow us on Instagram at Lactic Acid Pod. Or to make it simple, just go to the website. Everything you need is right there, lacticacidpodcast.org. I want to thank you all so much, and we'll catch you next time.